Alrighty, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Doffney. I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. It is my great pleasure to present our speaker for today, Tracie Boyle from the Investigative Genealogy Center at Ramapo College. Tracie is the case manager at the IGGC, and today she's going to be discussing not only the Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center at Ramapo and what they do, but also investigative genetic genealogy in general. And some of the cases that they've worked on, the processes that are involved, and even an opportunity if you're interested in learning more, maybe joining them for some of their coursework that they offer. So it's going to be a jam-packed presentation. We can't wait to jump into it. But before we do that, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. First and foremost, we will be taking your questions at the end of Tracie's presentation, but please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A or the chat feature in the Zoom dashboard. There will be a survey available at the end of the webinar, so if you have time, we ask that you please complete the survey. We always appreciate any and all of your feedback. And if you want more information about Investigative Genetic Genealogy, the IGGC, you can visit them at the website on the screen there at www.ramapo.edu/IGG. And one last thing before we jump in is just a brief overview of the Zoom dashboard. This is what your dashboard should look like if you're using a PC or a Mac. If you're using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all the features will still be there. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can see your audio settings. So if you're listening using an external listening device, such as like a headset or earbuds, you can check to make sure that everything is connected properly there. At any point during the presentation, if you run into any issues, there's a raise hand button here in the middle. You can click on that and that'll alert me. I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to solve any problems that you are having. And as I mentioned before, if you do have questions, there is the Q&A and the chat buttons. You can use either of them to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to address those questions at the end of Tracie's presentation. So that is everything that I have for you. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Tracie now.
Hi, everybody. Just give me a minute to share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see. Okay, and I'm also
looks good.
going to turn off my camera if I can figure out how to do so. Hold on 1 second. Actually, no, I probably should have done that. Oh, yeah, there we go. I turned off my camera just because my slides are more exciting than me. Okay. So, hi, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. My name is Tracie Boyle, and I'm the case manager for the Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center at Ramapo College. In my role, I oversee the progression of cases within our pipeline. This involves coordinating with law enforcement partners to facilitate the shipment of samples, provide regular updates on case statuses, organize case materials and resources for our students and volunteers, and offer additional support to the IGG Center as needed. I'm fortunate to work with David Gurney, our center's director, and Karen Binder, our assistant director, who also oversees the IGG certificate program. Together, we form a dedicated and efficient team. So many people wonder, what exactly is investigative genetic genealogy? Well, it may be referred to as forensic genetic genealogy, FGG for short, or forensic investigative genetic genealogy, also called FIG. These terms all denote the same methodology. Investigative genetic genealogy, IGG for short, and what I'll be using throughout this presentation, combines traditional genealogy and genetic genealogy to provide investigative leads in cases involving violent crime and unidentified human remains. IGG can also be used to help exonerate the wrongfully convicted. We utilize public DNA databases to compile a list of genetic matches, enabling us to reconstruct the subject's family tree through a process of reverse engineering. This entails creating DNA cluster groups, identifying ancestral and union couples, and tracing family lines forward in time to identify the subject. So while the first mention of IGG came in 2018, The use of investigative genetic genealogy actually began in 2017, but the identifications were announced a year later. Our first identification was of Marcia King. She was formerly known as Buckskin Girl, who was an unidentified homicide victim whose body was discovered in Troy, Ohio in April 1981. She was given the nickname Buckskin Girl due to the distinctive buckskin jacket that she was wearing. For over 3 decades, her identity remained a mystery until she was finally identified in 2018 as Marcia King, a 21-year-old woman from Arkansas. And I'd just like to clarify, these identifications were not made by the Ramapo Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center. They were made by organizations such as the DNA Doe Project, Parabon, CC Moore, Barbara Ray Ventnor, and a bunch of other people. So the next data point we have was from 2018, which is probably the most well-known case. Some of you may recognize Joseph James D'Angelo. He was known as the Golden State Killer. He was responsible for a series of heinous crimes in California between 1974 and 1986, including at least 13 murders, 51 rapes, and 120 burglaries. He operated under different monikers during his crime sprees: the Visalia Ransacker, the East Area Rapist, and the original Night Stalker, as well as the aforementioned Golden State Killer. Despite decades of investigation, D'Angelo remained elusive until 2018, when authorities arrested him at the age of 72. In 2020, D'Angelo pleaded guilty to multiple counts of first-degree murder and kidnapping as part of a plea deal. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Then in July 2018, John D. Miller was arrested for the murder of 8-year-old April Marie Tinsley. She was abducted on April 1st, 1988, while playing outside of her house in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Her body was discovered in a ditch shortly after. Despite collecting DNA evidence, authorities struggled to identify a suspect for years. In 2018, John D. Miller was arrested and confessed when questioned by authorities. He pleaded guilty and was subsequently sentenced to 80 years in prison. And then in 2019 came the first exoneration through IGG, and that was of Christopher Tapp. In 1998, 20-year-old Christopher Tapp was wrongly convicted of raping and murdering Angie Dodge in Idaho Falls in 1996. Despite no physical evidence, Tapp confessed after extensive coercive interrogations. In 2017, his rape conviction was overturned, but the murder conviction remained. It was in 2019 when DNA evidence from the crime scene was linked to Brian Drips, who confessed to acting alone. This led to Tapp's murder conviction being vacated in July 2019, clearing him of all charges after 20 years of wrongful imprisonment. Tapp's case was one of the first instances where IGG helped exonerate a wrongfully convicted individual. Tragically, Christopher Tapp passed away in November of 2023, less than 3 months after his wife, Stacy, died in a car crash. So during this presentation, I'll be referring to 2 main types of DNA analysis. STRs, or short tandem repeats, is the type of DNA testing that has been used in legal proceedings for many years. Profiles generated from STR analysis are uploaded to CODIS for law enforcement purposes and are what you typically hear about on crime shows when they talk about running DNA. Conversely, SMP profiles analyze single nucleotide polymorphisms. You won't be tested on this, though, I promise. SMP testing is used in genetic genealogy research, and the files are compatible with databases such as GenMatch and Family Tree DNA. To simplify the contrast between these testing methods, let's take a look at these 2 images. One pixelated on the left and another sharper on the right. The left image displays basic elements like a yellow moon, white mountains, and blue water, while the right image offers finer details, such as highlighted mountains, protruding ice in the water, stars in the sky, and a very round moon. This analogy illustrates the distinction between STR and SMP testing. STR testing focuses on tens or dozens of genetic markers, making it suitable for identifying close relationships like self, parent-child, or siblings. It's more fuzzy, and it doesn't have as much characteristics. On the other hand, SMP testing takes the concept of detail to another level. It explores hundreds of thousands or even millions of genetic markers, enabling genetic genealogists to uncover connections between much more distant relatives, ranging from parents and siblings, all the way to third, fourth, fifth cousins, and beyond. So this chart from a journal article entitled "4 Misconceptions About Investigative Genetic Genealogy" does a nice job of outlining the basic steps of a criminal investigation that involves investigative genetic genealogy. You can scan the QR code to read the full article. So on this chart, step 1 will always start with an investigation. Whether or not there's a suspect, an STR profile will be generated from the biological evidence available and uploaded to CODIS. Biological evidence typically refers to things like hair, blood, semen, bones, and teeth. If there is a suspect, they will collect a sample from that person and do a 1-to-1 STR comparison. If there aren't any suspects or matches in CODIS, the agency will continue its investigation until all leads are thoroughly pursued. Only then can they consider utilizing IGG. That's when we move on to step 2. An SMP profile is then generated from the biological evidence from the case and uploaded to GenMatch and Family Tree DNA. Next, we proceed to step 3, which involves genealogy. After the IGG practitioner identifies a candidate and shares the lead with the law enforcement partners, the agency will proceed to investigate and obtain a confirmatory sample for a 1-to-1 STR comparison in CODIS, or compare dental records, fingerprints, etc. to make the match. So despite sounding like a quick process, it can actually take anywhere from months or years to complete. The next 2 slides provide a broad overview of the case intake process. While there may be minor variations, these steps outline the fundamental stages that every case will go through. First, we look at the eligibility of a case and whether it falls within the Department of Justice's interim policy for IGG. This includes violent crimes, unidentified human remains, having been uploaded to CODIS, and that all leads were exhausted. Some agencies will opt to conduct IGG internally if they have personnel trained in the process, while others prefer to partner with an external IGG practitioner. We typically inquire about the type of specimen or biological evidence available, and then collaborate with our laboratory partners to identify the most suitable specimen for IGG testing. Sometimes we have multiple samples to choose from, other times we just have one. The following 3 phases can span anywhere from a few weeks to several months. Extraction, genotyping, and bioinformatics are integral parts of the laboratory process. Rootless hair samples typically undergo the most prolonged processing, whereas DNA extracts derived from an STR profile are usually processed relatively quickly during this stage. After completing the laboratory pipeline, an SMP profile is produced, ready for upload to GenMatch Pro, which is the law enforcement portal, and/or Family Tree DNA. Following this, the genealogy phase begins. Similar to the laboratory process, this research phase can vary significantly in duration, ranging from a brief period of hours to several years, depending on various factors. During this period, maintaining open communication with the agency is essential. While most IGG providers typically offer monthly updates, they may transition to quarterly updates if the process indicates a longer timeframe to identify a candidate. Once a candidate is identified, the IGG practitioner will present the lead to the law enforcement agency. It's important at this point to emphasize that IGG alone is not confirmatory. Thus, arrests are not made solely based on leads from practitioners. Instead, the agency must conduct confirmatory STR testing on the subject or a direct relative, or utilize alternative means such as fingerprint analysis or comparison of dental records to validate the lead. So going back to the databases, one common misconception is that IGG practitioners and law enforcement have access to DNA tests at Ancestry and 23andMe, but that's not the case. Let's take a look at some statistics. As of February 2024, Ancestry has over 25 million testers in its database, while 23andMe has 14 million testers. MyHeritage follows with 7.8 million profiles, GenMatch with 1.8 million profiles, and Family Tree with 1.6 million profiles. This means that Ancestry has the same amount of testers as 23andMe, MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and GenMatch combined. For investigative genetic genealogy, we rely solely on Family Tree DNA and GenMatch Pro. Combined, these databases only contain around 3.4 million profiles. It's worth noting that this number decreases further when we consider individuals who have opted out of law enforcement matching. This is precisely why we strongly encourage individuals who are willing to assist to upload their kits to the databases that we have access to. I understand that many individuals have concerns about terms of service and privacy. When registering for a new website, it's crucial to carefully review the terms of service. If the terms of service presented make you uncomfortable or you prefer not to make your information public, it's advisable to refrain from signing up. However, if you're considering uploading to GenMatch and Family Tree, after you read the terms of service, here are some of the options that you'll encounter. When you upload a kit to GenMatch, you'll provide your information and then come to a stage where you'll need to make choices regarding your kit settings. It's important to keep these two things in mind. All users who have uploaded their DNA data and choose to make it visible to all users are compared to unidentified human remains. So if you choose to opt out, your DNA will still be compared against unidentified human remains. But if you opt out, you will not be compared to perpetrators of violent crimes. Only those who have opted in are compared to perpetrators of violent crimes. At Family Tree DNA, you'll encounter similar options. However, in this case, individuals who choose to opt out won't have their DNA compared to any law enforcement kits. So you won't be compared to unidentified human remains or any violent crime kits if you choose to opt out. If you choose to opt in, you'll be compared to both. Now we have DNA Justice, which is a newer database, and it's the first and only nonprofit database specifically created for investigative genetic genealogy. Founded by C.C. Moore, Margaret Press, and Kevin Lord, its sole aim is to benefit the public with no intention to profit from law enforcement. Although currently a small database with a little over 700 uploaders at the time of this presentation, I am optimistic about its potential for growth in the future. Just between last week and this week, it grew by 20 uploads already. And we're hoping to get more. So one of the biggest hurdles of using IGG is the cost. Most agencies don't have the necessary funds allocated in their budgets to cover the costs associated with IGG, as it can range anywhere from $1,700 to over $11,600, depending on the type, quantity, and quality of the biological evidence available. The costs that seem to surprise people the most are the upload fees to GenMatch and Family Tree DNA. While regular users can upload their data for free, law enforcement kits are charged a fee of $700 per upload, and these charges are subject to change at any time. This also underscores the importance of a database like DNA Justice. So now that we've covered the basics of obtaining a case and uploading DNA to GenMatch and Family Tree DNA and the associated costs, let's dive into the research process. As mentioned earlier, this process closely resembles traditional genealogy, but operates in reverse. We start by identifying and expanding the family trees of the top or best autosomal DNA matches found on the subject's match list using their shared centimorgans. Centimorgans, commonly referred to as CMs, are a unit of measure for the frequency of genetic recombination. Our goal is to pinpoint the most recent common ancestor, also known as MRCAs, and find the ones that are shared with other matches. For instance, in our example, the MRCA couple between match number 1 and match number 2 are John Donahue and Margaret Smith, while the MRCA between match number 3 and number 4 are Benjamin Simmons and Sarah Johnson. Depending on how many centimorgans are shared between our subject and the match, we might go back a generation or two or start expanding the family tree downward and sideways to try to find a union couple. A union couple occurs when a descendant of one MRCA couple marries a descendant of another MRCA couple. When we find this couple, it means that they could be the subject's direct ancestors, like their parents, grandparents, or even great-grandparents. In our example tree, the union couple is grandfather Donahue and grandmother Simmons. They connect matches 1 and 2 and matches 3 and 4 to our potential candidate. So after a candidate emerges, we initiate a preliminary proof of life search for a DOE case or an evaluation for a criminal case. This involves looking through various databases like Been Verified, checking social media, newspapers, Fideograve, NamUs, and other publicly available records. Upon completion of our evaluation, we provide the candidate's name as a lead to the agency. As mentioned previously, an arrest is never made solely based on the lead provided by the IGG practitioner. All leads are either confirmed or refuted with a direct comparison between the individual identified as the investigative lead and the subject. So when discussing IGG, most people immediately think of autosomal DNA, but there are other valuable types as well, with xDNA being one of my personal favorites. While inheritance patterns vary slightly between males and females, working with xDNA matches can narrow the focus and cut down on research time. For individuals with an XX chromosome, categorized as genotypic females, an X chromosome is inherited from each parent, but only 3 out of 4 grandparents contribute to this inheritance. This distinction aids in pinpointing potential relationships between DNA matches and our subject. In the chart, individuals highlighted in red represent the xDNA inheritance path for females, indicating ancestors from whom she could have inherited her xDNA. Conversely, those highlighted in white signify ancestors from whom she could not have received any xDNA. For individuals born with an XY chromosome identified as genotypic males, they only inherit an X chromosome from their mother. In such cases, the xDNA inheritance eliminates half of the DNA matches family tree. This alone is quite powerful, but it becomes even more beneficial in a case of a male subject because it indicates that the most recent common ancestor will be traced through both of their maternal lines, which is huge. So another valuable, though somewhat underutilized form of DNA is mitochondrial DNA, also referred to as mtDNA. Mitochondrial DNA is inherited along the maternal line to both sons and daughters, but only daughters continue to pass it down the line. For instance, if my mitochondrial DNA haplogroup is H2A2A, it can be assumed that my child would also have the H2A2A haplogroup, as well as my mother, maternal grandmother, and so on. Similarly, my brother would share the H2A2A haplogroup, but his children would not inherit that haplogroup. They would have the same haplogroup as their mother, not him. This aspect becomes significant in some IGG cases, as it can help in ruling out or eliminating downlines or potential candidates when examining large family groups. However, it cannot be used to definitively identify a potential candidate or downline, as many individuals may share the same haplogroup without being closely related. So this is a quick example to illustrate how this can be applied. Our Jane Doe is likely a great-grandchild of Mary Jones. Since we know that Jane Doe's mitochondrial haplogroup is H2A2A, we can exclude any downlines with a mitochondrial haplogroup of U5B2B, indicated in black, or those who do not inherit H2A2A, indicated in white. While you will not have information for every DNA tester, when the information is provided, it can be extremely helpful. In our casework, we face numerous challenges, with one significant hurdle being the underrepresentation of minority populations in DNA databases like GenMatch and Family Tree DNA. While individuals of European descent are well represented, African American, Hispanic, and other minority groups are less so. Consequently, their DNA matches are not as close, making their cases more complex to solve. To address this gap, we're running the Latin American DNA Donor Project at Ramapo, providing free kits to those with Latin American roots at events who are willing to test. By diversifying the database, we increase our chances of solving more challenging cases. So far, it's been quite successful, as other practitioners have contacted us when these testers have showed up on their match lists. Adoptions and misattributed parentage are also more common than most people realize. Family secrets are exceedingly common, and the unidentified frequently have complex family backgrounds. Oftentimes, we'll have to identify the birth parents of a match, or sometimes even multiple matches, in order for us to identify a candidate. We also rely on cooperation from voluntary DNA testers. These are people that may be in the downline of a couple, but have not yet tested or uploaded to GenMatch or Family Tree DNA. They're typically contacted when we require additional testers to refine our research focus, either to confirm or exclude a particular family line, or when we're searching for closer matches. It's important to note that genealogists usually reach out to more distant matches, second cousin or beyond, while law enforcement contacts closer matches for assistance. So I hope that you've gained a deeper understanding of the IGG process today. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Ramapo College's IGG Center, how it started, its current status, and what we offer. So in the summer of 2022, Professor David Gurney submitted a priority needs proposal to the college, which allows the Ramapo community to establish centers or programs to address contemporary issues and elevate the institution's reputation. Once the proposal was approved, Karen Binder came on board in fall 2022, and the center began accepting cases. By December 2022, the IGG Center was officially launched, followed shortly by the commencement of the online certificate program. Spring 2023 marked a significant milestone as students from the IGG certificate program provided the center's first leads, leading to announcement of our first identification. During the summer of 2023, the center hosted its inaugural Ramapo Investigative Genetic Genealogy Conference, coinciding with a doubling of enrollment for the certificate program. Then in the fall of 2023, Tracie Anders and Monique Platt joined as program support assistants, collaborating with Karen and David to further enhance their certificate program. And then in November 2023, I had the privilege of joining as the case manager, contributing to the continued growth and success of the center. So the IGG certificate program, which is taught by Karen Binder and Professor David Gurney, offers a comprehensive 15-week remote learning experience accessible to students worldwide. Through the blend of live virtual sessions and hands-on participation in an actual identified human remains case, students gain the skills and ethical framework necessary to proficiently practice IGG. And what's great about this class is it's entry level, and it also does not require a college degree, so it's open to a much broader range of people. And you get to work on an actual human remains case, which is always an experience. For students enrolled in the academic programs at Ramapo College, the IGG workshop provides a 15-week 4-credit introduction to the fundamentals of IGG, taught by Professor David Gurney. This workshop serves as a fundamental course for students interested in exploring the field further. And they also get to work on actual cases. So additionally, graduates of the IGG certificate program and experienced practitioners have the opportunity to enhance their skills at the IGG Bootcamp, a week-long summer program hosted on the Ramapo College campus. Here, participants engage in intensive casework, learning to navigate various challenges commonly encountered in IGG investigation. The bootcamp takes place in the state-of-the-art investigative genetic genealogy lab, providing a secure environment conducive to collaboration and skill development. One of the misconceptions about the IGG lab is that we are a wet lab. We do not do any testing in the lab. It's a computer lab, but we have a very secure environment. So only people with access card can get in. And we also have encryption on our internet as well. And students here will work on identified human remains, but they also can work on criminal cases and wrongful convictions as well. So the Ramapo Investigative Genetic Genealogy Conference, also referred to as RIG, is the first conference dedicated solely to investigative genetic genealogy. We're currently gearing up for RIG 2024, but I'm going to take a quick look back at last year's highlights. We had over 20 speakers and welcomed 150 attendees, including CeCe Moore, who some of you may know, who delivered a keynote address. In recognition of her exceptional contribution to the field, Ramapo College awarded her an honorary doctorate. RIG is open to all, so if you're interested, we'd love to have you join us. If you want to learn more about last year's event, check out my colleague Karen's recent blog post titled Memories of RIG 2023 and the Countdown to 2024, available on our website under Updates and Insights. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code for easy access. So as for casework, we currently have over 50 cases in various stages of our pipeline. We've successfully generated 10 investigative leads, 7 are unidentified human remains, 2 are violent crimes, and 1 is a wrongful conviction, which we are very, very excited about because I believe this is the second or third wrongful conviction through IGG. So it's very exciting. Of the four of the 10 that have been confirmed have also been made public. So, and these are the people that we have been able to identify. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into their cases, each individually. So the first case was Nogales John Doe. His remains were found on September 8th, 2022 at a hotel in Nogales, Arizona. He was between 49 to 73, and he had a surgical scar along his left frontal hairline. Although his fingerprints were traced to Donald Hadland, authorities and Donald relatives believe that this was related to a stolen identity. But the certificate program had done some research and discovered that the John Doe was indeed Donald Hadland. For this case, they had really good matches, which isn't the norm. They had a grandchild match, a third cousin match, a first cousin match, and a second cousin match. So that was pretty good beginner's luck there. The next case is St. Louis John Doe. He was a young man found on January 16th, 2012 in St. Louis, Missouri. It is believed that he may have been traveling through the city. He was a Black male, estimated to be 16 to 40 years of age. He was found with clothing, headphones, and a wallet containing U.S. currency. When it comes to African-American cases, we typically see more distant matches. And this case had been intended for the certificate program, but when we had taken a look at the matches, we had discovered that he actually had a first cousin who had tested and was in the databases. I think it was on GenMatch. So they got lucky, and Karen actually provided the identification for him because the match was so close. We didn't even bring it to the students this time. So this was a very rare occurrence. It doesn't often happen, but we were very excited to be able to provide Joseph Pierce back his name. So the next identification was for Rhinelander John Doe. His remains were found March 19th, 1980 in a field in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. He was estimated to be 6 foot tall, weighing 165 to 175 pounds, and he likely wore glasses. The certificate students were able to identify him as Norman Grasser, and his case was a little bit more complicated because he did have a higher sibling match. I believe that was after confirmation, though. I believe that the two matches were first cousin twice removed and the second cousin once removed. And then the sibling had wound up testing as well. And that helped us confirm Norman Grasser. And then the final identification was for Beaver Creek John Doe. The remains of Beaver Creek John Doe were found August 30th, 2011 in a hiking area in Yavapai County, Arizona. He was 6'1" and weighed 252 pounds. He was clothed in a t-shirt featuring the band Widespread Panic, shorts, sneakers, and a backpack. And what was interesting about his case is that his matches were very low. He was identified as David Jacobson. He was one of our most recent announcements. But if you look at his matches, they were a fifth cousin, second cousin, fourth cousin. This is one of those situations where details about a case also provide useful. During the research, one of the students in the certificate program had come across some information that helped land on a potential candidate. In the newspaper, they had found that he may have been from Florida or New Mexico, and it was also possible that at one point he was employed as a pharmacist with CVS. They found that David Jacobson was employed as a pharmacy technician at a CVS and lived in New Mexico and Florida. There was another article that mentioned the sheriff's office believes that the man's first name may be Philip. David Jacobson's father was named Philip. And then there was another article that said he then provided statements to the cab driver that believed the fact that he was familiar with the Flagstaff and Verde Valley areas. David Jacobson lived in Flagstaff from 1997 to 98, and then 2005 to 2007. So there was unpaid tax liens, pharmacy technician license was not renewed, and then uncollected wages from CVS also led to the identification and the presentation of this candidate. So we also have a bunch of New Jersey cases for unidentified human remains, Jane and John Doe's, that we are currently working on. They have not been identified yet, but we are hopeful that we will be able to give them back their names as well. So these are the cases that we have. Oldman's Township John Doe. He is likely African-American and was estimated to be 35 to 45 years at the time of his death. He was wearing a green and red Mozzini by Monticello long sleeve plaid shirt. And he was found off a highway, US 130 in Oldman's Township. For Salem County John Doe, his remains were discovered on June 2nd, 1979 in Quinton Township, New Jersey. They were found in a shallow grave off a dirt road in a wooded area. It's believed that he was 18 to 22 years old when he died on the winter of 1978 to 1979. Then the partial skeletal remains of Montague Jane Doe were found near High Point State Park in Sussex County, New Jersey in 1980. She was estimated to be 15 to 20 years old, 5'1", and she had dark brown hair, bleached blonde at the time of her death. Scattered Man Doe is a pretty fascinating case. His remains were found on beaches in South Jersey between 1995 and 2013. A skull fragment washed up in Longport in 1995, and then additional bones were later found in Margate in 1999 and Ocean City in 2013. I believe that the 1995 and 1999 ones were linked, and then later on, because they had been uploaded to CODIS, and then later on, the 2013, when that was uploaded, it was a hit as well. So there was 3 different pieces of bones that showed up on these beaches. At the time of his death, he was believed to have been 30 to 40 years of age, but we will see. It depends on how good the estimation was. And then some other cases we have is Burlington County Jane Doe. She was estimated to be 25 to 35 years old at the time of her death. Her remains were discovered on October 26, 2004 in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And she was wearing distinctive clothing, including a leopard print scarf. Old Bridge Jane Doe, she was found at a Nike missile base, an old abandoned one, in Old Bridge, Middlesex County, New Jersey on February 14th, 2008. She had brown hair and is estimated to have been 5'5" tall, 120 to 130 pounds, and between 35 to 45 at the time of her death. Then we have Hudson River Shore John Doe. He was found on the west shore of the Hudson River in Palisades Interstate Park after being washed up during a storm. He was estimated to be 31 to 51 years old. And then another intriguing case is a foot that washed up ashore the Delaware River in Patacon Township in New Jersey, and it was found by a resident there on May 21st, 2017. The foot inside an ankle sock and Reebok shoe was determined to have belonged to an adult woman. The rest of this Jane Doe's remains have never been recovered. So we are very excited to work on her case to learn more about who she was. She just recently came out of the lab, so we are excited to get started. So at the heart of Ramapo's IGG Center mission lies the invaluable support from our donors, fueling our work and enabling us to fully cover the expenses for IGG cases, extend our outreach to underrepresented communities, and conduct vital research on ethical dimensions of our work. Thanks to people's generosity and the revenue generated from our programs, all costs, from lab work to genealogy research, are covered by the Ramapo Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center, ensuring that agencies can leverage investigative genetic genealogy without encountering financial barriers. That's one of the things that we're most proud about, is that we can provide our services free of cost. So now there are so many people who are helping to get answers about their loved ones. Another way is to help upload your DNA. Another way that you can help is to upload your DNA kits to GenMatch, Family Tree DNA, and DNA Justice. Sometimes all it takes is one key match to give somebody's identity back to them. Also, don't forget about the power of spreading the word. There are multiple stories out there about how a simple share on social media led a family member to recognize their loved one from a well-done facial reconstruction or a sketch. It's all about reaching the right people. And sometimes you may be the person that can reach the right person. If you're interested in attending RIG 2024 or learning more about the IGG certificate program, please visit our website at www.ramapo.edu/IGG, or you can scan the QR code. For RIG, tickets for general admission with dorm end on March 31st, 2024, and conference-only ticket sales end on May 15th, 2024. And as somebody who stayed in the dorms last year, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. You get to go back to college for a couple days, and you also get to meet a lot of great people and just have a really good time. If you're interested in the IGG certificate program, the application period for fall 2024 will close May 19th, 2024. Accepted applicants will be notified by June 7th, 2024. Space for both of these events tend to fill up fast, so I recommend signing up early to secure your spot if it's something that you really want to do. So feel free to contact us at the following information. Again, our website is ramapo.edu/IGG. You can also email us at igg@ramapo.edu. And with that, I will take your questions.
All right, thank you so much, Tracie. If anybody does have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be happy to address them. Let's see what we have coming in. Ancestry's new terms of service seem to indicate that they will allow DNA uploads in the future. Do you know if this is the case?
I have seen that, but I do not know what their plans are yet. I know that they have privacy concerns, so I'm not really sure what the terms of service are alluding to.
Do you know how large the CODIS database is, and how are DNA samples added?
I don't know how large the CODIS database is, but DNA samples are added. They'll take the biological evidence, they'll put it through their crime labs, they'll do the extractions. That STR profile is created and uploaded to the CODIS database, and that's when they run it against all the other profiles in the database.
And do you know who DNA is in the CODIS database? Is it victims? Is it criminals? Is it a combination?
Yeah, there are certain guidelines in order to be put into CODIS. I don't know, I know it varies from state to state, but it's usually those who have already been charged and convicted of a crime. And also there are unidentified human remains. When they are found, they are also uploaded to CODIS as well.
Um, what personality types or skill sets would be beneficial for someone pursuing an IGG certificate?
Somebody who likes a mystery. There's a lot of people from the true crime community who tend to like to do this type of work. Also those who like puzzles, who really like research, because sometimes you can spend a lot of time researching. People who are persistent, patient, and enjoy a challenge.
Do you see this being used to identify unknown soldiers, such as Civil War soldiers?
It is currently being used to identify unknown soldiers. I don't know if it's been used for Civil War, but I know that other organizations are doing it currently for soldiers.
Um, what is the typical career path of a graduate of the program? Do all the graduates work for law enforcement?
No, not all graduates work for law enforcement. So the field of IGG is kind of competitive right now at this moment, and sometimes it takes out of the box thinking to get your foot in the door. There are some graduates who create their own businesses. They'll team up with other graduates, and there are some that have created for-profit businesses, nonprofit businesses. Others have tried to join crime labs. Some are law enforcement already, and they just want to enhance their skills. Some will contact cold case units in their states and see if there's any kind of career path for them with the cold case unit, since there are people who need help in that aspect with law enforcement that don't necessarily know how to do IGG. And then also just networking is important, talking with people, seeing what opportunities may be available. It's a lot of people have to find their own path and try to get their foot in the door somewhere that way.
Do you need to have experience to attend the RIGG conference?
No, it's for all people, but you should have a little genealogy knowledge. Otherwise, some things may be a little bit too advanced.
Um, is there anything volunteers at a genealogical society can help with besides funding, sharing info, and promoting DNA uploads?
Genealogical societies. I'm not really sure offhand because a lot of our work is more sensitive, so we can't just give out information freely. So typically the best things to do are to support through the methods mentioned. Another thing to mention too through our programs, which I didn't mention, was that graduates of our program also can become volunteers through Ramapo. So when we have cases that come into us when it's not during one of the classes, we will work them ourselves, and we employ volunteers to come in. Well, not employ, but we have the volunteers come in and they will help us work these cases.
Um, is there a wet lab component to the program, or is it only information technology based?
No, it's only information technology based. We would love to be able to get our own lab here, but it would be extremely expensive. And we do have a lot of great lab partners that we work with, so we are happy with them right now.
Um, is IGG's work confined to New Jersey cases?
No, as mentioned with some of our identifications, we have, I believe, I didn't write down the statistics, but I think we work with over 20 agencies and 20 or 25 agencies in 9 different states. So it's just not New Jersey cases, but we do have a lot of cases from New Jersey right now.
How do you confirm you're identified? Or how do you confirm you identified a John Doe correctly? Do you get DNA samples from their immediate family members?
It depends. For John Doe's, sometimes the person we identify has already had fingerprints on record. Um, if the fingerprint of the doe and the candidate that we identified also has fingerprints somewhere, they can compare those two. Dental records are another thing. If the doe has dental records and the candidate has dental records, they can also be compared. Otherwise, we will find a close family member of the John Doe that we identified. It could be a child, a parent. Those are the ones that we prefer. Occasionally, we will reach out to siblings and aunts and uncles, but sometimes they have to be confirmed through GenMatch. But we prefer to do the STR testing as much as possible. So anything that's like a close family relative that can be compared through CODIS is preferred.
Do organizations like the Innocence Project have their own genetic genealogy, or do they work with law enforcement?
I don't believe they have their own, but don't quote me on that. We do currently work with some Innocence projects ourselves. So we help provide leads as well. I know they also contract with other IGG providers. We're actually heading to an Innocence Network conference in New Orleans next month to talk to some people and hopefully get more cases coming our way from there.
Can you get hired doing IGG work after completing the certification program? Or do you typically need a bachelor's in something related to go into that field?
You don't need a bachelor's. Right now, there is no degree required for IGG. The thing about this course that's amazing is that it gives you a leg up because you get to work on an actual case, which doesn't happen in most educational environments. You could technically go out and get a job, but like I said, it's very competitive. So it takes somebody with a lot of determination to work at it in order to get their foot in the door.
And we talked about this a little bit before the webinar, but maybe can you comment about the possible accreditation process that's coming up
Oh, sure.
for IGG?
Yeah, so we have the accreditation board, the IGG AB, I believe it's called. And they are hoping they're actually in the process of creating accreditation for investigative genetic genealogists. So I'm excited about that because we'll actually have some kind of a certification rather than just, being the wild, wild west, even though we all try to do our best to be ethical and make the right decisions. But having a certification will definitely be a step in the right direction. And I believe that they are preparing to release their exam toward the end of this year. I was just at I4GG last month and they had announced an update on their status then.
What about the financial benefits once one gets in the door of IGG?
The financial benefits of IGG
Yeah.
for the person who's
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
there are none. I mean, it depends on where you work. It would be likely, I mean, there are volunteer opportunities, which aren't going to really be the financial benefits. There are also jobs you can take. It's going to just be based on what the salary is for that position. So for me, it's more about the victims and their families and what I get back from that. I mean, we all need to, make a living and have a salary, but you are not going to be getting rich doing IGG.
About what percentage of the cases involve endogamous groups like the Ashkenazi Jews?
There are quite a bit. It depends on the cases we're given. There aren't as many in New Jersey, but there tends to be more in like the southern states, also the Ashkenazi. So that's also with the Latin community. That's also an issue we have, not an issue, but it's something that we have to look at with endogamy with that. So endogamous populations are a concern, which is why the more testers we can get, the better the matches we can get, and we can look at the segment size, which is what's more important in endogamous cases.
How much does the program cost? Is traditional financial aid available?
I believe it costs $6,000, and I don't believe that traditional financial aid is available, but that would be something that you would want to look at on the website. And part of that I would just like to mention too, that $6,000 tuition that actually goes back into our casework. So that tuition that you're paying is actually benefiting the cases that we're working on.
How many open cases do you have right now?
Right now, we have 7 that are waiting to be assigned to a team, but some of them will be waiting for the certificate program, so they won't be worked on right away. But beside those 7, we have other in various stages in the pipelines. We have a total of over 50. I think it was at 54 last time, just generally from the beginning to the solve. So the ones I mentioned earlier that we solved, the 7s that just came out of the lab, and then we have other ones in various stages in the lab.
Besides the IGG program, are there plans for other genealogy programs or certificates at the college?
I don't know. I know right now our focus is on IGG, since that was kind of what the whole plan was for. So I don't believe that this college will do just a genealogy certificate. There are other options like the University of Strathclyde. I think I said that correctly. They have some genealogy certificates. The National Genealogical Society also has a certificate. Boston University also has a genealogy certificate. So there are some options out there that people who are interested in just genealogy can do those certificates. And then there's also the certifications, the AG, the certified genealogist, and the AG, accredited genealogist.
All right. Give it a couple minutes to see if there's what percentage of cases are unsolved pending additional samples in the database?
It's hard to know exactly. There are a lot of cases that we have in various, I also talk with other IGG practitioners, so there's cases throughout all of our pipelines that are just waiting for the right matches, because as I mentioned earlier, those with underrepresented populations in the database, such as Hispanic cases, African-American cases, recent immigration, that could just also be from recent immigration from Ireland, from England, from Germany. Cases that have Turkish ancestry are notoriously difficult because there aren't many records and no testers, very little testers. So I can't really put a percentage on anything, but there are quite a lot of cases that we have waiting, and that we check the databases regularly to hope that some new uploader decided to test or upload, and they're going to be a good match to our case that will help us. And the thing is, I think most people don't realize is that you don't need to be a first cousin to help. There's a lot of times where we solve a case with a fourth or a third cousin. And that was the key match that we needed, because we were able to identify a cluster group with that fourth cousin that led to a common ancestor. We built downlines and we're able to find that union couple. So that's another way that people could help, that sometimes they don't realize if they don't have anybody missing in their immediate family, they don't think the uploading will help, but it will.
Are all inmates required to submit their DNA?
I don't believe so. I know that there are some changes to different state laws. There is some frustration in the community because there have been identifications made where if their DNA had been put in CODIS earlier, they probably would have been identified. And maybe they wouldn't have murdered or raped somebody else. So that's one of the frustrations. But I know different laws in different states required database collection at different times throughout our history. So I can't really give a direct answer. It varies from state to state, but I believe that most people who have been convicted of a felony are uploaded into CODIS. But again, don't quote me on that. That would be something that would have to be looked into.
Would you know if your DNA in one of the databases was used in a case?
Not typically, unless we reached out because we were having either trouble identifying you or we were looking for downlines and needed additional testers. That's typically when we're going to reach out. When we provide reports, we anonymize the matches for privacy protection. So their names are not in the reports that we personally give. I know that other organizations also don't provide names for matches either. But no, unfortunately, you typically won't know if your match if you were used as a match unless law enforcement had reached out to you or a genealogist reached out to you.
Is the IGG certificate program 100% online?
Yes, the IGG certificate program is 100% online. It is open to people all across the country, and there is a afternoon and an evening class. So we have people from like the UK who actually take the afternoon class, and then the night class is for the people who might have a 9-to-5 job but still want to partake in the program.
I don't see anything right now. Anything you want to kind of wrap up with? To see if any more questions come in.
No, I think I covered everything. The only thing I would say is, if you feel comfortable uploading your data to GenMatch or Family Tree DNA, that's one of the best ways that you could help us. Also attaching a family tree or making a family tree public on the internet anywhere, Ancestry or Wikipedia, or our WikiTree. Those are great ways to help and just, helping share the information, donate when you can, volunteer for organizations that are looking for volunteers to do this work, and just, help us help the victims and their families. That's kind of the best thing that we can do.
Are there tours available for the IGGC at Ramapo?
Yeah, if people want to come and visit, they can. The campus is beautiful, so it's always nice to come and take a tour of the campus. The IGG Center is a computer lab, so it's not very exciting to look at, but it's also fun to see all the computers in the space and just get an idea of how we work and where we work. So if you want to come get a tour, feel free to contact us. It's igg@ramapo.edu, and we can set something up.
Besides uploading to GenMatch and Family Tree DNA, what about DNA Doe Project?
DNA Doe Project, you can't upload through. They are a group of volunteers. But DNA Justice was the other website that you can upload to.
Alrighty, well, I think we go ahead and end it there. So thank you so much, Tracie. We really appreciate your time and the deep dive, not only into this kind of emerging profession, but also the work you're doing at Ramapo. So we appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you. And thank you so much for everybody coming today. I know it's the afternoon, but I really appreciate you all being here.
All right. This program is being recorded, so look out for a link to that in a follow-up email that you will see. And then if you want to get in touch, I will make sure to include the contact information for the IGGC. So please feel free to reach out to them with any other questions or inquiries. So and I'll just close with everybody be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you. And yes, we'll see you all at the conference. Make sure you all go. It'd be great to meet you.